Good afternoon, distinguished guests, colleagues, and students. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the International Business Week 2021. I'm Nguyen Nguyen, lecturer at Management Department, RMIT Vietnam, and it's my honor to be your host today. We are gathering today to gain greater insight about the impact of COVID-19 on business worldwide and in Vietnam during the last 14 months of the outbreak. After the welcome remarks from the members of the organizing team, we will have the first session of presentations, followed by a Q&A session and a panel discussion. Over the last few years, RMIT has successfully organized the International Business Week. To continue this series, the International Business Week 2021 is organized by Explore, 14 months into the COVID-19 crisis. Stakeholders, adaptation, and resilience. We have the great honor to have the following distinguished speakers participating in our event today. First, Ms. Trang, HR Director, Vietnam and Cambodia Regional HR Director, Secure Power Business, EHA at Schneider Electric. Ms. Quynh, Chairwoman of BambuUP, former Managing Director of Nielsen, Vietnam. Mr. Laurent Chong, Group CEO of Consulus, based in Singapore. Associate Professor Trung Nguyen, Head of Management Department, RMIT Vietnam. Dr. Abel Alonso, Senior Program Manager in International Business, Management Department, RMIT Vietnam. Dr. Seng Kok, Senior Program Manager in Human Resources and Entrepreneurship, RMIT Vietnam. From RMIT, we are delighted to welcome the presence of Professor Mathews Nkhoma, Dean of School of Business Management. Associate Professor Robert McClellan, Deputy Dean of School of Business and Management. Staff and students from across disciplines and campuses. Now I'd like to invite Professor Mathews Nkhoma, Dean of the School of Business and Management, to deliver his welcome speech. Please welcome Professor Mathews Nkhoma.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nguyen, for your warm welcome message. First of all, let me also welcome our distinguished guests, Ms. Quynh, Chairwoman of BambuUP and former Managing Director of Nielsen, Vietnam. Ms. Trang Kap, Human Resources Director for Schneider Electric, Vietnam. Mr. Lawrence Chong, the Group CEO of Consulus, based in Singapore. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mathews Nkhoma. I'm the Dean of the School of Business and Management. And it's my great pleasure to welcome you all to the International Business Week 2021. As part of our engagement strategy, we have established this impactful annual event series for International Business Week to discuss vital international business themes in Vietnam and best practices for international business. But also within the School of Business and Management, we believe in offering our students a transformative student experience. All our business programs offer a fresh perspective on business problems. Our students learn the skills to address real-world business issues. We deliver work-ready graduates with the skills to adapt to challenging and ever-changing business world. And that is why I'm so excited with this event, because it speaks a lot about our strategy. This is the 5th event organized by the School of Business and Management. And the central theme of this year is 14 months into the COVID-19 crisis, stakeholders, adaptation, and resilience. As you may have seen from previous events and also from today, we've managed to invite famous experts and managers from industry, government, policymakers have all been invited to participate in this event. I'm looking forward to listening to all the speakers, but also to learn from them, because we believe in listening to the people from both the industry and government so that we can apply everything else that we have learned into our day-to-day learning environment. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I'm wishing you all the best in this event. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, I would like to say hello and send my sincere thanks to our distinguished guest speakers, faculty members and students. And thank you for being here with us today. So, you know that like one of the very important strategic goal of this event is to bring valuable insights about IB-related conversations to our students. And we would love to hear from our students as well. And therefore, as part of this event, we launched a contest for our students, RMIT student majoring in IB. The brief details about the contest you can see from the slide showing. So first of all, if you want to join, you can join both as individuals or as a team. If you join as a team, you should have from 3 members and less than that. What you need to do. So you need to create a film or an infographic video or a PowerPoint to present your reflections on the questions here. How do the presentations in IB Week connect to your future as an IB person? Right? So we understand that like our students are very busy with deadlines at the moment, so we won't push you too much. So we will have the deadline quite later at 7 p.m. and week 15 on Sunday, the 20th of June 2021. Okay, so the most important part, what benefits you have, right? So the top 3 submissions will receive awards from the school. The winning submissions will be announced publicly. The third one, all participants who submit will receive a certificate of participation from the school. And finally, participants can also seek for letter of recommendations from our IB lecturers for job or study purpose. So for further information, please go to our landing page of the event, which you can find from the slide, and with all the details guidance there. And you are more than welcome to contact me if you have any questions. Thank you very much. And we hope to receive as many submissions as possible.
Thank you, Dr. Quynh. That is a very exciting contest for our IB student. Now everyone is ready for our first presentation. Please remember, for this online event, from now on, you can raise questions in the question tab for our guest speaker who will answer this in the Q&A session. The first presentation will be from Dr. Abel Alonso, Senior Program Manager, Management Department, RMIT Vietnam, on the topic, the micro small firm perspective, survey results from Italy and Spain.
Thank you very much indeed, and a warm welcome to everyone, including the guest speakers who very kindly agreed to participate, and all students. I hope you can learn as much as possible. So this, because I now have less than 15 minutes to present, let's move on with my presentation, which focuses on mainly Italian and Spanish micro and small wineries. And then I will discuss a little bit about the Vietnam environment, the Vietnamese environment in terms of SMEs, and also a very significant industry such as the coffee industry. So next slide, please. So as you can see, similar to the map of Vietnam in terms of coffee production, you have a lot of regions throughout Italy and Spain that produce wine, both still wines as well as sparkling wine. So there are specific regions that are quite popular for that. But you get the picture. I mean, there is a lot of diversity in terms of varietals, and the potential for export is enormous. In fact, next slide, please. You can see from this slide that there are 3 main producers worldwide. Next slide, please. So and they are interchangeable. So some years it could be Spain or France or Italy. 2 years ago it was Italy. And on the right-hand side, you can see that also the same nations are the world's most exporting nations for wine production. So Italy and Spain, as you can see on the right-hand side, are the leading wine exporters. However, as one of the quiz questions inquired, there are some issues here. Spain, for example, next slide, please. Italy and Spain, on this slide, you can see the significance, the financial significance of wine exports for both countries, because I'm focusing only on these two. So on the left-hand side, you can see that Italy still wines, that is the red, the whites, and the rosé wines, have found a lot of markets, and these markets are extremely lucrative. On the right-hand side, you can see Spanish sparkling wine products, such as the cava. I'm not sure if you ever heard of that product, but it's quite popular. It's a significant revenue source for Spanish wineries, particularly from the Barcelona, the Catalonia region. Next slide, please. Here is where sort of the problem starts. You can see that Italy and Spain are the leading exporting countries, together with France. As I said before, sometimes production fluctuates, but these are the top 3 exporting countries. Next slide, please. However, in terms of value, and this leads me to one of the topics of this presentation, which is adding value to production, you can see that France by far maximizes these revenue opportunities through exports, followed by Italy, which, by the way, is a main exporter of wines to the United States. So the United States imports most wines from Italy. So it's a very lucrative market for Italian wines. So from being the 3rd exporter, you can see that France is actually the main earner of wine exports. So something is working well for the French so far in terms of successfully marketing those wine products to a wide audience throughout the world, whereas Spain continues to struggle. You can see that despite being the 2nd largest exporter, the price they obtain for their wines is still quite low, and they focus a lot also on exporting bulk wines or container wines to be bottled elsewhere. So they lose in that potential lucrative area of adding value. Next slide, please. Here you can see the main importing wine importers throughout the world, with the United States being the leading one, almost $6 billion in imports from other countries. And as I said before, Italy being the predominant market. You also see the United Kingdom, which comes 2nd. They import a lot of wines from Spain, as a matter of fact, and Germany being in 3rd position, whereas China has risen its prominence as a wine consumer in the last decade or so. So there is a lot of potential to be found in the Chinese market. Next slide, please. And the presentation that I'll be conducting briefly, the next few slides, will be focusing on micro and small businesses. Most wineries, as well as businesses in other industries throughout the European Union, are micro or small in size. And in the European Union, about 27.5 countries now that the UK have left, they are considered those firms that employ fewer than 50 people. Whereas in Vietnam is a little bit different, and I will show you that in a few slides. Next slide, please. So this study, as I said before, will focus predominantly on firms that employ fewer than 50 people. Next slide, please. So the sample of companies of firms that we were able to collect information from is shown on the top. So from Spain, 42, many more from Italy, for a total of 209. And most businesses, as you can see, all of them are considered micro or small. So some of them, 12% almost, no employees. And you can see on the right-hand side in the bubble, the text bubble there, Vietnam has 93% of businesses in Vietnam have fewer than 200 employees, and they are considered micro and small. Whereas in the European Union, as I said before, it will be fewer than 50. So one of the quiz questions also was related to the table 2. So one of the main impacts for those micro and small wineries, most of them exporting wines either to other European Union countries or to farther distances such as the United States, Japan, etc., was the demand, the drop in demand for products. So the scale that I used was a 1 strongly disagree to a 5 strongly agree. And as you can see, the 4 or the 4.37 for Italy illustrates agreement. The second part was also export, so it's related to the first one. So demand decreased, and as a result, a lot of the export markets demanded less wines, and therefore wineries were forced to hold on to that stock that they had. It's not a huge problem because wine is not perishable within a short period of time. Some wines actually can last for decades, but in terms of sales, it actually was a huge, it had a very negative impact for the participating firms. Next slide, please. And here is where this is what I tend to ask a lot of students to think about the implications of those impacts and how they might affect the companies, in this case, international business related firms. So as you can see, one of the main factors that helped the firm survive these first few months of the COVID crisis was to engage in diversifying techniques or strategies, trying to conquer or enter other markets, as well as sales channels. And also something interesting that has implications is the increase in the online presence, which is not surprising because wine can also be purchased online already for many years, including not only within the same country, but also exporting to other areas around the world in boxes or you name it, DHL, etc. And then at the table 4 asked participants to indicate to what extent their business model, the way they manage the firm, might change following this this crisis that we are facing. And as you can see, the first almost 1/3 of the respondents indicated increasing their presence online because that is working for them. And then in second, which relates to the second answer above, almost 1/4 of the respondents indicated increasing online presence as a key element, as a key tool to overcome or to weather the crisis that they are facing. Next slide, please. So here is where I want to make some connections with the Vietnamese within the Vietnamese context or with the Vietnamese business environment. Next slide, please. So I chose the coffee industry, which is a major exporter and revenue earner for this country. So you can see that by far Brazil is the main exporter, but Vietnam comes, producer, but Vietnam comes second. And Vietnam is known for the Robusta variety, which is about 90+%, represents almost 97% of coffee production. Next slide, please. However, this is what I find. What I found a lot of sort of a striking contrast. Next slide, please. So you see the map on the left-hand side, whereas the Robusta variety, which is the variety Vietnam is known worldwide for. Increasingly, there are pockets of Arabica, so that contributes to more not only diversification, but perhaps the potential for blending different flavors and so on. On the right-hand side, you can see that very oddly, there are countries there, and one of the questions was related to this. There are 5 countries among the top 10 coffee exporters that are actually not coffee producers, which is quite striking. And there are implications from that or of that. And one of them being that Vietnam is right now occupying the 5th place in coffee exports. So there is a lot of potential for adding value and enhancing the image of Vietnamese coffee around the world. So 5 of the 10 exporters are actually non-coffee growing countries. So they have the technologies and know-how and all the and the opportunity or the chance to roast, package, and market those coffees to many countries around the world. Next slide, please. So this leads me to on the left-hand side, you see that coffee exports, although they have been decreasing, they still represent a huge revenue source for Vietnam. So this pattern, this sort of evolution, might continue throughout the next few decades. But here, these results also highlight the importance of adding value. So on the right-hand side, you see the Porter's value chain, where there are elements that could be added into the mix in order to make the coffee industry here much more competitive. Why does this relate to SMEs? Well, on the next slide, please, you will see that most coffee producers and a lot of the students were right in their choice for answers. Over 600,000 producers are small holdings, so it's a very fragmented industry, and therefore, whereas ideally you can see on the second paragraph, it is recommended that a large coffee mill, which is the picture you see on the right-hand side, which is like a warehouse used to process, bag, and package and so forth, and maintain the coffee dry. There should be one for every 100 hectares of coffee production. This hasn't been achieved, and as a result, the quality certification continues to be a problem. If that could be developed over the years, that will provide a lot of opportunities, not only for the small businesses, but for the coffee industry as a whole. Next slide, please. The good news, so the great potential that exists here is that, as you can see on the left-hand side, emerging markets such as China and others are actually steadily consuming more coffee. Another good piece of good news is that the producing countries like Brazil, or of course Vietnam, with a strong coffee house culture, coffee consumption continues to increase. And then at the bottom, the black line, the traditional markets, the United States, the Canadas, and the European Unions, you can see that still coffee consumption continues to increase. And as a whole, you can see on the right-hand side, although there are ups and downs, especially last year with the COVID crisis, where you can see that possibly due to the closure of many coffee shops, consumption has decreased a little bit. This year it has rebounded. Next slide, please. So SMEs constitute a very important part of Vietnam's industries in plural, and for them there is a lot to gain from these developments. Coffee, mangoes, you name it, different industries that are growing in Vietnam. Next slide, please. So on the right-hand side, the highest percentage of SMEs in different South Asian countries have expansion plans, which is great news because this data were collected in 2020. On the left-hand side, you see the need for support. Now there are opportunities for SMEs in Vietnam due to this trade agreement that has been established with the EU. So there are opportunities that could be tapped into. Next slide, please. So then, to sum it up, diversification, as you saw from the results of the wineries from Italy and Spain, upskilling, because a lot of them will need to learn how to use online tools and platforms to sell their wines, and support from others, which in the case of Italy was quite strong from the family business. And in Vietnam as well, there is a very large number of family businesses. So I would like to end this presentation by focusing on those three. So the need for diversification / adding value to the production, the upskilling of people. For instance, in some of our classes, we focus a lot on bilingualism, which could be quite handy, hands-on, and very beneficial for companies once we go over, hopefully, this COVID crisis. And the support from others, here I would like to include ourselves, the universities, where we have a lot of people with industry and experience and other skills, and we could provide support in soft skills, for example. So I would like to thank you all, and again, thank you to all the guest speakers and the students and the staff who, because of you, we have put this together, and thank you for all the organizing people who are behind the scenes. So I would like to entertain any questions when I think we come to the question Q&A session later on. So a big thanks to everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Abel Alonso, for your great presentation. And now please welcome our next speaker, Ms. Quynh Nguyen, Chairwoman of BambuUP, former Managing Director of Nielsen Vietnam, for her talk on Make Yourself Relevant to the Future.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. It is really my pleasure to join your event today. Thanks for the previous presenter as well. I quite enjoy your presentation. I'm not a lecturer, so what I'm going to share with you today is like more from my own experience and my perspective. And the topic I would like to share is how to make yourself relevant for the future. So next, please. Okay, so maybe we can skip this because you already have my profile in hand already. So look into this photo. I guess that everyone knows this photo. Is the photo of Nokia CEO when he ended his speech by saying that we didn't do anything wrong, but somehow we lost. And at that point of time, people thought that Nokia had not changed fast enough, so that he lost to Apple, right, and the other Samsung and other competitors. But if you step back a little bit, the underneath reason for Nokia is actually that Nokia had not prepared themselves well enough to be relevant for the future. And what it was doing was no longer relevant for the future. Please, next, please. So we all are now undergoing an inflection point. So an inflection point, by definition, is the point when a curve turns its direction. So when it turns its direction, it can go up or it can go down. So the COVID-19 is actually a big test for every nation, every company, and every individual to test our health, to test our immunity system, to see whether we can survive or we can thrive during this crisis or not. On the other hand, that technology is actually changing the whole world. And according to some statistic number, millions of jobs will be lost, will disappear in the next 5 years because the robot will replace us. So what used to be your competitive advantage now may not be your competitive advantage at all in the future. So how each of us prepare ourselves to be ready for the future? Okay. So next, please. So when I talk to a lot of, can you come back to the previous slide? Yeah. So when I talk to a lot of senior in the industry and outside the industry as well. We're all talking about that, hey, we are kind of the middle-aged generation. And is it the time for us to relax? Or is it the time for us to keep moving on, going on? And we all agree that we still need to keep going, keep moving forward. And the question that makes us awake the most at night, and we keep asking ourselves every day, is that how to make myself relevant for the future? And if someone in this event, you haven't asked yourself that question, I would suggest now you can start asking yourself this question, because it's very, very important for you in the very near future. Okay. Next, please. Okay. So I spent, my career path is pretty interesting. I spent almost 16 years at Nielsen, which is the #1 the market research company in the world. And then my inflection point was in 2019, when I decided to leave Nielsen and set up my 2 own companies, my 2 own startup, which is the Blue Ocean, is a consulting and venture company, and BambuUP, which is an innovation platform. So when I joined Nielsen, I was started at a very low level, very early level of Nielsen, which is executive level. And just after a very few days, I was super shocked when I recognized that my skill set was much lag behind my college. Right? Even that at that point, the company decided to send me to TOEIC class to help me to improve my English. Right? And at that time, I told myself that I could not give up. I have to put all the efforts. So I worked days and nights, really, actually in the first 6 months at least, just to be able to catch up with my college. Right? And after 11 years, I was assigned to be the Nielsen Managing Director of Vietnam and Cambodia. And I was proudly to be the first Vietnamese and also the first female to get that role at that time. Right? So my big learning is that don't be not confident with your starting point. If you already have a very strong starting foundation, which is great. But it is even more important that all the efforts you put into your journey along the way, which will help you to be successful or go higher in the career ladder. It depends on how much effort you put into the journey. Right? So when I do a quick reflection and what in my 16 years with Nielsen at that point of time, and what I just try to conclude here, it's just this very, very basic thing. First of all, the self-aware. The self-awareness is very important. We should be confident, but we should not be overconfident. We should know where we are, and we should know that we have many things to learn, right? And we keep learning. At that time, I keep learning. I spent a lot of times with my experienced colleagues to learn from them, and I put wholehearted in the work to deliver better work, better outcome every day. I never say no to any challenge. I love the challenges because I believe that when my boss give me the new challenge, means that he or she trusts in me, and he trusts that I could do it. So I took the challenge, and I try to test my limit, right? And always I try to keep my positive energy. So with many years with an MNC company, and then when I moved to the startup one, I do see that the basic competency that still stay the same, but with all the changes in the world right now, it just moved on to the next level. It's a more complex mode of those core competency only. And I can put it in the 4 key points I put for myself, and I hope that you can take some of this one to apply for you as well. The first one is that we don't know how's the future look like, but we know that many changes will continue happening. So, and new things come in, new knowledge come in, right? So we need to keep the ability to keep learning and learn fast, right? We need to keep the open mindset. We know that we don't know many things, and we have to learn every day and learn it fast. You don't have much time. The second one is that you should have the courage to hit the comfort zone. Everyone loves the comfort feeling, right? But courage to hit the comfort zone, to break the comfort zone, to go outside, the only way will help you to develop yourself better, to test your limit, and to develop the new capability. The third one will be, everyone's talking about resilience, so I will put it, I totally agree, resilience is important, but I put it with another component, is that resilience with a positive energy, because the resilient, you feel a lot of pressure, right? You push yourself a lot to be resilient. It sometimes feel burden, it sometimes feel desperate, right? But it's more important for you to be resilient, but with a positive energy. That's the only way for you to keep going in a far journey, far road, and to get a better outcome. The fourth the fourth competency here I put is strategic agility. Agile is a big word this day, and everyone tries to apply to be agile and apply agility in the way they operate right now. But the strategic agility is important. You should always have the sense of the direction. Should always have that where you are aiming for. What is your end goal? What is the big picture? So when you are agile, you still move forward towards the right direction. So those are the 4 core competency, which I believe not just before COVID, but after COVID, and even moving forward to the future, it can still help you to get yourself relevant for future. Next, please. Okay. So the one of the challenge whenever we talk about core competency and the skill, people think that it must be it's take a lot of time. Some people confuse don't know how to practice to develop those competency. Whether do I need training or need coaching? I need a mentor, etc. So this is my tip, right? I practice develop those competency via daily thinking and action, right? Cannot be sometimes you think about it and sometimes you put yourself in a room and try to learn it many hours, but it should be everyday practice. And it's coming from your think and then your action already, right? So to develop those the 4 core competency, as I just mentioned to you, in my thinking and in my action, I always put 3 key factors, key questions that I put here. I was challenged, what's next? So don't be happy with what you are today. Keep asking what's next to get yourself prepared for that. Even if you haven't a solution to a challenge, but keep asking yourself whether that solution is suitable if the situation change, the context change, and what should be the next change of the context. So keep asking about what's next to get yourself prepared from now. The second question I always ask myself is that why not? Why can't I do that? Why don't I take this? And why don't I challenge the stated part? Why can't we do this? Right? So all these questions will help you to think outside the box and ask you to find a more optimal way and more efficient way to do your job. And it is actually more exciting compared to what we do the BAU one and the routine one. Right? The third one is very important, execution excellence. Even in a lot of leadership skill this day, people say that the ability to execute is one of the key critical as well. So let's starting from the very small thing every day. When you say something, you do it, right? When you do it, don't just kick it off. You have to get it done. Ensure the execution excellent. Ensure the outcome is your best effort. It is very important. Do your best every day. Okay. So next, please. Okay, so I just want to end my presentation today with a comment list. You all know the word success, right? And the word success is start with the S. Actually, the S to me is the word self. The success also concluded with the letter S as well. It's also self. So everything starts with yourself. Your success will start with yourself. And your success will be concluded by yourself as well. So I hope that I have shared with you some interesting information and can be useful for you somehow. And I look forward to see you all success in your career path and wish everyone here the health and success. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you, Ms. Quynh Nguyen, for your valuable insights. Today, we are pleased to welcome Ms. Trang Kap, HR Director, Vietnam Cambodia Regional HR Director, Secure Power Business, EHA at Schneider Electric, for her talk on winning the unplanned.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen, and good afternoon, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. So I feel really inspired by the case study of Dr. Abel, as well as the individual in reflection of Ms. Quynh. And I'm here today to represent a big corporate, Schneider Electric, to tell you the story of how we together win the unplanned. That's how we name the story. And as you all know, in the profile, I'm Trang Kap, and currently I'm taking care of the Human Resource Department. And today I will bring you the perspective from organization and people perspective on how we together to support business and our people, our customer to win to deal with the crisis, the pandemic of COVID-19. So to start with, so please come to the next slide. I want to show you a video.
The world is full of people telling you who to believe they are. Well, we thought we'd tell you who we're not. Let's start here. We're not in shipping. We don't make lifts. Seriously, no lifts. We do this. We're good at this. And we make all of these. And even though you'll find us here and here, we don't make energy. We make you save it. And you'll be saving the environment too. Are we an internet company? Well, we connect and power just about everything around you, helping machines talk to each other and to you, making your world more personal. We're seeking out the big questions and answering them honestly. Like, how can we make the most of our energy and resources? Or can we make access to energy and digital basic human rights? We're real people, employees, developers, partners, investors, and inventors, all passionate about doing what's right. We're open, humans of all sorts from all over, learning from each other and about each other. We're not here to save the world. It'll go on with or without us. We're here to help power and connect what you do every day, to ensure life is on everywhere, for everyone at every moment.
Thank you, organizing team. And can you go back to my slide? Next slide, please. Okay, so the agenda of my talk will be covering who we are as Schneider Electric. And then I will come quickly to how we set the priorities in response to COVID-19 and the different stories compared with case study in terms of change and innovation, effective communications, how we support business needs, and last but not least is employee needs and benefits. Next slide, please. Okay, so you went through the video just to say with you who we are, and it's interesting often of this corporate video that we start by saying that we are not making lift, we are not making shipping, because many people mix up Schneider Electric with Schindler from Germany, which is the elevator business. So this is just to recap our business as the leading energy management and automation company. So we provide different solutions in energy management, starting with the smart home devices in your house to the digital solution in your buildings, and then the reliable power of power system and power products. And then you can see we have smarter manufacturing thanks to the industrial automation business, as well as the data center by the secure power business. And last but not least is the services business that we ensure that we provide the maintenance next to our customer. So this is a recap about our business of Schneider globally. So next slide, please. Quick recap on the historical background of more than 25 years of Schneider in Vietnam. So we got the first footprint in 1994, set up our first office in Ho Chi Minh City. And then we got acquisition of Clipso of APC to fulfill our product portfolio. And then we also got in 2017 to open our high-tech factory in Ho Chi Minh City, as well as some of the big projects you can see on the screen. Next slide, please. Okay, so now I come directly to the story of COVID-19, how we respond to the pandemic. Next slide, please. So before we shake hands with our employees in coming up with a lot of actions for intervention to respond to COVID-19, together at the leadership team, we set very clear priorities. This is firstly, people health and safety. Secondly, we secure job for everyone. Thirdly is business continuity and sustainability. And last but not least, we don't forget to focus on the growth and acceleration post the crisis. So all of our actions would be, based on these 4 principles as a backbone. So next slide, I will start first with how we say that we got a lot of change and innovation. Next slide. So we define change and innovation by saying that we respond very early to the change. And then we part of the big corporate, but Schneider Vietnam, we did a lot of initiative being very different versus the region versus the global, with great impact. And last but not least, when we say we are innovative versus the local market. So I will show you some examples to demonstrate these three elements. Next slide, please. Okay, so when we say that we respond early to the pandemic, so you say that we talk about work from home policy, work virtually, mobile working, and basically Schneider Vietnam did launch the flexible working policies since January 2018. So by doing so, by the time that we got the pandemic coming in, we become not being so reactive to the crisis anymore, because our employees have been familiar with this mobile working, and we already provide a lot of digital tools and available platform for our people to perform their job. And on the right side, we were also proud to be one of the very first companies to launch this employee segregation plan. Now it becomes very common, but by the time that COVID-19 just reached Vietnam, in Ho Chi Minh City, I remember that time in February last year. So we become the very, very first company to launch it by having the two group A and B working, just to minimize the risk of having, like, if we have positive case, then only one group will be isolated, and then we can still continue our business. Next slide. So we talk about change and innovation in being different from the region, from the global of Schneider, because in Vietnam, for example, when we say that we have to clean up own annual leave of our people to support finance in funding the cost for the company. So instead of letting our employees to manage their leave, so Schneider Vietnam did come up with reduced work week concept. So we come up with 8 Fridays off, as well as applying block leave for the two group. And on the work from home challenge campaign on the right side of the screen, you could see. So we think about how to engage people better. So that's why we trigger the campaign of showing how employees make their breakfast, make their lunch at home, and capturing their working corner at home, and some even taking pictures with their kids on how they can together and work and study at home. So just to make people stay engaged during the pandemic. Next slide, please. So we talk about change and innovation in the concept of being innovative compared to other companies in Vietnam as well, in local market. So you can see 4 campaigns on the screen. We got the new normal campaign, where we ask employees to share how the new normal would be in their daily job. And then we got the virtual internship assessment center. So for the first time ever, we have to conduct assessment center in the hiring process virtually, and that went well. And in terms of equipping our line manager, the toolkit, we already promptly conducted the virtual change management workshop just to support the line managers. And last but not least was the real-time engagement survey, where people can capture their satisfaction rating on a daily basis. We don't wait for an annual survey just to listen to our employee satisfaction. Now I will come to the second part of communication. So, communication normally is very important, because in a big organization, we want to ensure that message is consistent, is timely, and is transparent to everyone. But during the pandemic, when the workforce is not being together, communication is become more and more important, because we have a lot of things to cascade at a higher speed. So in Schneider Electric, when we define effective communication, next slide, please, we set very clear 3 principles. First and foremost, EVP is our guiding star. EVP stands for Employee Value Proposition. So every company has its own EVP, and at Schneider we also have it. So in all of the message we cascading, we want to ensure that we have meaningful, empower, and inclusive, which is our 3 EVP globally. And we want to be consistent with that. The second point is seamless, timely, and two-way communication. And last but not least, it's not just me, HR director, or the general director to cascade, but this is everyone will plays a part in the communication. Next slide, please. So I will show you example on how we demonstrate these 3 principles. So on the left side is how we updating and cascading information during the pandemic. We have the pandemic committee. We meet every day in order to ensure that we catch up with the information and cascade the direction in the company. And then we have department group chat, we have site group chat, we have weekly management meeting. So it's all about how we align before we cascade information. At the same time, we don't forget to receive feedback from the employees. That's why we call two-way communication. So we got all of the virtual meeting, we start with the questions. What do you expect in the meeting? How do you feel about all of the actions we are implementing? And then we don't forget to launch an employee feedback survey just about COVID-19 actions, just to listen to our employees' expectation and how they feel, because this is the first time ever we deal with this big crisis. Next slide, please. Everyone plays a part in the communication as I share. So in the survey, you could see most of the communication will come from my direct line manager. So it doesn't mean that it's the message from HR or from the leadership team or from the general director, but it's directly from the line managers. And even we have steering group at each side so that we can play together the communication. It's not just the job of every single person. Okay, so I come to the next part. Next slide, please. Which is the business needs, because being the HR partner, I mean, it's very important to understand the business need and how we can support the businesses in the normal day, especially in the crisis. So come to the next slide. I will share with you of the 4 main pillars of how, together with my team, we set very clear agenda in supporting our business. Firstly, is to ensure business continuity. I think it's critical for all business in the crisis. Secondly, we don't forget to prepare our workforce for the new normal. Right? And thirdly, we prepare for the day after by sustaining our financial ratio, how we can support finance team in protecting our margin, and I will show you the real story on the next slide. And last but not least is to ensure the triple win: employees, company, and our customer, our stakeholder. Next slide, please. In terms of business continuity, so I shared with you earlier, we are proud to have the work from home policy and all of the digital platform you can see on the screen. Logistic team, customer service team, sales team, they are all equipped with digital platforms so that, I mean, based on the office or at home or anywhere, would be exactly the same. So this is one of the ways that Schneider will ensure the business continuity during the pandemic. And even we are now familiar with the new way of working, which is more mobile. Next slide. It's about how HR support business. So you see on the left side would be the chart of how we measure the sales, and at the same time SFC, meaning the personnel cost. So if we have sales drop, we support business by funding exactly that drop in sales in order to protect our margin. So you will see around the 1 million euro saving that HR support business by all of the actions like annual leave arrangement, virtual training, delayed salary review, as well as applying unpaid leave. So we shake hands with employees in taking a lot of actions, and we did come up with 1 million euro saving for the business. And you know, I mean, under the law of Vietnam, we need mutual consent of the employees in many actions. So in order to do so, we need to seek for their empathy of why we're doing that. And one of the principles that people are very happy and support the company is that we secure job for everyone. So no employee will be impacted. We lose job during the pandemic. But in order to secure job for everyone, we will shake hands to do a lot of action to save costs for the company. So this is one of the things that we can measure of how HR support the business during the pandemic. Next slide, please. Yeah, so here is the triple win, as I said, employees, company, and stakeholder in our principle. Okay, so I come to the last part, which is employee needs and benefit. Because this is, next slide, please, because this is very important for everyone. Okay, next slide. So we look at the Maslow needs of starting with physical needs to mental needs, belonging needs, and esteem needs. And we want to ensure we have a lot of activities to ensure those kind of needs. So we have several activities, next slide please, to share with you that during the pandemic, we have well-being tips, we equip protection for our site engineer, and we equip people with many skills like selling virtually skill, and we ensure job for everyone. This is about physical and mental needs. Then we come to the next layer of needs. On the next slide, please, meaning like employee belonging and esteem. So you see, we have 3 examples of how a female, a working mom at Schneider feel proud of when we immediately apply working at home for mom when we got school off. Early in 2020, and then in the middle, we got a lot of story about silent hero during the pandemic, just to engage people better when we work virtually. And last but not least, it's the toolkit for managers in sharing experience to engage the team virtually. And the last line I want to end is just how the results speak out. So this is the employee engagement results survey, where for the first time ever, we even got a higher score of employee engagement result during the pandemic, where we were very worried about how we can engage employees better. So I will end my presentation by saying that I share this to many of my colleagues and my friends yesterday, that we talk about execution excellence, right? In order to measure the success in normal situation, but in the world of uncertainty, so I would say that it's all about, in order to survive and to grow, you have to know how to win the unplanned. So that's why we name our presentation and our story that winning the unplanned. And I do hope that with this success story from Schneider Electric Vietnam, you, especially the students, can have some beneficial takeaway for your professional study, life, and work. Thanks a lot for your listening.
Thank you, Ms. Trang Kok, for your great presentation. Now, please welcome our next speaker, Mr. Lawrence Chong, Group CEO of Consulus, based in Singapore, for his talk on strategy to navigate COVID-19 for Asian enterprises. Mr. Lawrence Chong, over to you.
Hi,
please.
good afternoon, good day. It's good to be here with all of you. First of all, a great thanks to RMIT, and we collaborate with RMIT, and also to my colleague, Helena Pham, the Managing Director of Consulus Vietnam. We are very happy to be here with you. I will jump straight into the topic that I'm asked to share, because during COVID-19, this was a major part of our work in helping companies rethink their business models. Next slide, please. So the World Economic Forum have said that this is a period of the Great Reset. And I think sometimes when we use terms like reset, we need to be quite aware of its definition. And what I hope to do in this very brief presentation is to give you an outline of how the global economy is evolving, and what when you go out to the workforce, or if you're an enterprise, or if you're covering news regarding the transformation of the Vietnamese economy. And I would say that Vietnam is among one of the most ready countries in Southeast Asia that can capitalize on this growth. Next. So you can see that now we are in what we call a mask economy. The latest, most optimistic consensus from global experts, whether it's health or economy, says that COVID-19 will be with us for the next 2 years or 3 years, due to the fact that a lot of countries do not have healthcare infrastructure. The virus continue to mutate. Even the countries that have proceeded very well in vaccination, we are seeing more and more cases as the virus mutates. So it also means that we need to be comfortable that COVID-19 will be with us for quite a while, and operate the economy with this in mind. Next, please. Next slide. So, of course, obviously, many companies were shell-shocked by COVID. I think if you look back at onset of 2020 or the end of 2019, there were quite a number of very positive forecasts. We were expecting the global economy to do rather well, but when this happened across the world, many companies were ill-prepared, and it's understandable. Next, please. So even companies that pride themselves, if you have studied blue ocean, right? This is one of the classic case studies that was presented. They are in the blue ocean, they are not in the red ocean, they have their own intellectual property, they faltered. And this is not the only case. And also because we have to say that the global economy, as it became more integrated, has become far more complex. Now, you may hear a lot of new paradigm shifts, those kind of words being thrown about. But more importantly, we need to go into the details, because if you ignore the details and if we become very simplistic in terms of our strategy, then we will miss out on the fundamental truth that allows a company to thrive and why it fails. So nowadays, if you see any business strategy that tells you, if you're in this sector, if you're innovative, right, you have a higher chance of survival, be very careful, because the world has becoming far more complex than you have imagined. Of course, there are room for growth, but details matters right now. Next. So if we look at it, frankly, and I use a Singapore example, even before COVID-19 hit, you can tell that there were some growth bubbles in certain sectors. And I would say that COVID-19 has become that equalizer, or to show up what we call the moment of truth about why some business models were entirely not sustainable. And this is quite a common trend throughout the region and in the world, based on the COVID-19 assessments that we have done. Next. So in the situation of Singapore, obviously accommodation, food services were heavily impacted. Transportation and storage, not as much. Other service sectors, not as much. Business services, not so much. The best performer are those in information and communication, right? Because you need to work from home, you need to use big technology. And so anything related to server, digitization, even cleaning services, those businesses do very well. We need a lot more reliable power, definitely energy, food, those industries do very well. But it's quite interesting to see that, again, before COVID-19, if you remember the era of Donald Trump, right? I can go alone and I will succeed alone. It is clear that COVID-19 has proven that our global economy works when we have more collaboration and interdependence. And this isolation of economies is extremely bad for business, and it's not sustainable. Next. So COVID-19 has also generated another issue. A lot of companies are pivoting. Should I remain in the industry? If it happens again, am I ready for it? Or if I want to evolve, what should I do? And I think it is very interesting for us during the period of COVID-19. Next, please. Vietnam is probably one of the countries where the companies, even though they are shell-shocked, but probably because of the good fundamentals, it is well positioned as an economy and how well it has handled COVID thus far. Vietnam is one of the few places where the companies are actually looking forward. And this is a company that I will share more a little bit. It's a construction company, but they're one of the companies that we work with, right, to transform during COVID, not before COVID, right? So you have a very, very interesting situation emerging from the story of Vietnam. Next, please. So what's the strategic impact of COVID-19? Next. So we can say that the platform economy, very much powered by smartphones, we have come to the point of efficiency. And if we look at Grab, they are going for an aspect deal in the United States. They are only able to grow because they are riding on very strong, what we call digital infrastructure. And if you remember the period of SARS, if we have something as serious as COVID-19, and if it happened that many years ago, almost 15 years ago or 16 years ago, during the SARS period, we'll all be dead because working from home would be really impossible. But because we have the digital infrastructure, we can say that even though it's terrible, but the digital infrastructure that has been placed, of course, we are in 4G, we are going to 5G, has allowed working from home and operating, right, or being part of a global economy from home or anywhere economy possible. Next. Of course, having said this, the battle between the US and China has already been brewing. Now it is in what we call the full swing. And even with Joe Biden, the Biden administration, this battle will not end. In fact, the Biden administration has affirmed Donald Trump's initial policies and very stringent policies, and we expect that this will shape the regional powers, especially for ASEAN. Of course, ASEAN economies are asked to pick sides. ASEAN economies are asked to take a stand. But like in this particular case, we can say that Vietnam is a very big beneficiary from the US-China trade war because Vietnam is very well positioned as a technology manufacturing hub with a young population, very strong with digital talent. So the going ahead looks bright for Vietnam in this situation. Next, please. So what should we take note if COVID-19 were to stay with us for the next 2 to even 4 years, right? Social distancing is a norm. Any business that expected, for example, some countries succeeded in reducing the infections, they start to open up. And then they have to close that in again and reinstate social distancing. So what we have advised a lot of companies is just expect that social distancing will be for a while. And what is for a while? 5 years, right? And your business model in terms of how you calculate revenue per square foot, if you're running real estate, if you are doing businesses based on footfall like retail, have to bear your financial planning have to bear in mind social distancing. And then what you can expect, snail growth. That means when the global economy is not able to hum like before, you definitely must be prepared for snail growth. And with the ongoing US-China trade war, we can expect these are other ongoing factors. So you have to really understand that the economy going forward is not like a sprint. Especially for Vietnam as a country that has experienced high growth, relatively high growth compared to a lot of other ASEAN countries. This is something that needs a little bit of adjustment. But then again, Vietnam will still continue to see a very good sustainable positive growth, we imagine. Then of course, the next thing is clear is being savvy in all things digital. If you are still a business, any business, whether you are a logistics business, manufacturing business, and you're not competent in digital, you're asking for trouble, right? And the last thing is you need a talent force to be very good at situational thinking. That means there's going to be a lot of turbulence and how do you handle those stresses? So this is what we call the 4S. Next, please. So when we looked at the capacity, like I said, business is becoming very complex. It is not so simplistic to say, okay, let's create a new product, let's have a new brand, let's be in a less contested space, like taking a very generic strategy. Increasingly, you need to be very clear about the interconnectedness of how you thrive and succeed in a much more global and complex geopolitical environment. Next, please. And so we have done over 2 years, almost 1.5 years, we have been doing this COVID-19 review and transformation for a number of companies across the world. Next. As part of our study, we have conducted it in 7 countries over 3 continents. 51% come from Asia, 24% come from South Latin America, and 24% from Europe. These numbers are like this because it's where the Consulus office are throughout the world. Next. So when we looked at every single company, we looked at these factors. One is staff. How are staff able to deal with difficult times, tough times, because things are constantly being disrupted. And we looked at the strength of the company in terms of relationship with suppliers to gain favorable terms because sales is not coming in, cash flow is being challenged. How do they deal with issues? What is their relationship with the clients? Now they cannot travel. They cannot meet an overseas client, right? What's that relationship? Then we also look at how well they pivot in terms of doing new products and services and how well they move into new sectors. What is their cash flow bank balance? How well do they, thrive, in this moment of sustained lockdowns? I mean, Vietnam didn't experience a lot of lockdowns, but places like Malaysia, now there is a major lockdown in Malaysia. What do they do about it? And the strength of the offerings, products and services, the marketing, how well do they communicate with their stakeholders, operations? How do they, are they ready? Are they prepared for pivot, for change? And of course, how well do they handle themselves in terms of the partners, sales, and of course, lastly, how does the digital element come into play in order to help them better navigate this difficult time? So these are very reliable indicators. And next, please. So you look across the board, of course, this is a no-brainer. Most are affected by production ability and cash flows. That's a given. But what we are really looking out for is this thing called manpower capacity. How well do the talent adjust, deal with the impact, and come up with solutions in order to move forward? Because you must understand, it's almost like being punched and constantly, right, as a company, because of the lockdowns, because of the disruption, and how well you do with it. Next, please. And if we look across the board, in terms of so a lot of companies tend to treat their staff as resource. One of the things we like to do when we go in to transform a company is to change the name of the HR department. It's not to call it HR, not human resource, but talent, right? Because now with a far more complex economy, you need to understand that your staff is not cost, that your staff are value creators, they are value generators, they are value amplifiers, right? So this relationship with employees and how they deal with situation matters. Then of course, how well, what is the valuable relationship with clients? That means if you are missing as part of the value chain, will you be as valuable? But lastly, I would say the biggest conclusion at the bottom is that because a lot of companies assume the growth will be upwards and they were not prepared for a down, right? And or they were just spending, doing a lot of borrowing, right, in order to finance that rapid expansion. They were being busy, but they were not necessarily having the business model that was increasing their value or increasing their sense of being an essential service to the client. And that's why if they are suddenly, no longer in proximity to the client, they are less valuable. Next, please. So one of the best pivot stories in a generation, right, is Steve Jobs, because of the fact that he saved the company from bankruptcy and he paved the way for the company to be worth $2 trillion. Next, please. So you have this, and we use this a lot with a lot of companies. First step is what we call related pivot. Okay, you are doing this kind of service. You are maybe selling a certain dish. You are in the food business, and how can you pivot? The next pivot is what we call asymmetrical. It's linked to your core competency. Then eventually, you may want to transform, move the business forward towards what we call experiential pivot. It's more context. It's more inspired by the environment. And ultimately, the most difficult pivot is what we call disruptive pivot. Next, please. Yeah, so this is the Apple example. They started with a related pivot. They're very good with computers. They went into iPods, and then they went into iPhone, and eventually they launched the Apple Store, which today still has the highest revenue per square foot in terms of retail experiences. And they beat hands down a lot of traditional retail players. Then of course, right now, Apple's biggest power is to be able to build its own chips. Yeah. Next. Right. So the key in order to shift the company to be able to pivot, right, is this. How do you train the team to think strategically and tactically in moments of crisis? Next, please. Right. So it's what we call the 4C. And if you can do that, then you will survive better. It's not even about being successful, it's survive better, right? First is cost. What are you fighting for? Next is cost. How do you look at cost in a new way, right? In terms of value creation, not just as saving money. Then next is how well you coordinate with all this disruption. And does your company have what we call a collaborative culture that allows you to collaborate with others in order to amplify your scale? Next, please. Right. So for sure, you cannot control the events because, like I said, COVID is going to stay with us for 2 to 3 years. God knows how long it will be, but this is the reality on the ground. Next. And you probably have to be very mindful of the environment that you operate in and to be very truthful about the limitation, right? And right now, because of COVID, we see that across the board for a lot of industries, they are in what we call restrictive environments. Next, please. Right, so it's environment, it's strategy, and tactical, these 3 levels. Next. So in order to help you analyze as a business, we consider this thing called the PTSC, right? Political, how well the political environment shapes your strategy, technology, how does it impact you, and social, like we mentioned, social distancing, and then competition. Next. So just our short review of the ASEAN environment, right? We see that there's going to be a lot of popular unrest on the rise. So you see Myanmar going through a crisis. You see Thailand, there's growing crisis down there. And because of COVID, there's going to be a lot of nationalization of economies because governments are stepping in to save certain industries. And there will be a lot of push from the citizens for an economic model. And so cost of government will be high. Next. So in terms of technology, it's definitely going towards a trend of collaborative technology. So if you're building a platform, it's how can you collaborate with your peers in the industry there is going to be a lot more accelerated automation. Vietnam is definitely ahead of that in terms of building fast cars, and some of the Ving Group is going to be listed. Those are very good examples. There's going to be more tech, and Vietnam is ahead. So digital and remote workforce, again, Vietnam benefits because Vietnam already have a digital and remote workforce for some time, and that's a good thing. And big tech will consolidate its power, that's without a doubt. All the big tech firms have double-digit growth during COVID. Next. We see that there's definitely a change in the way business is done. It's no longer business is obtained due to drinking or networking. It's going to be business based on intelligence, right? So that's going to move a lot. So it's about relationship, but at a distance. How do you build friendship over the distance? And of course, the new norm is work stress, work-life balance. In fact, people say working from home is great. It's horrible because you cannot tell the difference, right? Blurring between your rest mode and your working time. Yeah. Next. So now the new competition, sorry, if you go back one slide. The new competition is not about quantity, but it's about quality, right? Size doesn't matter. It's the ability to outlast that is important. And the business model is going to be more digital and human-centric. And the unexpected thing is increased products and solutions adaptability, because COVID has generated this whole new mindset of being able to build on the go. Next. So in conclusion, right, the strategies for any enterprise in ASEAN is this: beyond function, what is your purpose? What are you able to serve, right, your industry? And I think Vietnam already have a number of those companies that are thinking ahead. Cost, are you rethinking about how you manage your cost, distribute risk, collective purchase, for example? Collaboration, how do you collaborate as an industry or you know, work with each other to write this out? And finally, in terms of your business model, how good are you in coordinating to you know, recover your growth, because the coordination part. And I would say of the 4 points, number 1 is very important. Number 3 and 4 are the next one. They are very important. Then you go down to cost. Yeah. Lastly, just to share that same company before I close the presentation. Yeah, the next slide. Yes. So GDC, this project at GDC was that classic example, right, of the 4 C's, right? So we said, you want to be a construction company. Yes, you want to grow your sales, but that's not good enough. Why should people work with you? Why do you deserve to be a construction company for the future of Vietnam? Especially Vietnam is growing, right, at such a pace with such a young population. So they understood that it's about providing smart solutions, right, in order to serve a future generation, a better generation that Vietnam deserves, right? So that's the thing that helped to galvanize them. And during COVID, because they were very cognizant on the fact that this is the new purpose, they are able to attract a new set of partners from beyond Vietnam who is willing to work with them and who also believe that Vietnam is going to emerge stronger from this entire situation. Yeah, next. And may each of you shape the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence Chong, for your very interesting presentation. Now I'd like to invite everyone to participate in today's Q&A session on the topic 14 months into the COVID-19 crisis, stakeholders, adaptation and resilience. Our panel discussion will have Ms. Trang Kap, HR Director, Vietnam and Cambodia, Regional HR Director, Secure Power Business, EHA, at Schneider Electric, Ms. Quynh Nguyen, Chairwoman of BambuUP, former Managing Director of Nielsen Vietnam, Mr. Lawrence Chong, Group CEO of Consulus, based in Singapore, Dr. Abel Alonso, Senior Program Manager, RMIT Vietnam, and Dr. Seng Kok will be our moderator of this Q&A session.
Thank you, Ms. Nhan.
Please start.
Thank you, Ms. Nhan, and thank you to all our panelists as well. Really insightful presentations, a lot of lovely details, and a lot of learning for our students and our audience today. There's loads of questions coming in, and there's also loads of questions that have been fed in before the event as well. We'll try our best to go through all of these, and we'll try our best to get the experience and insights of our different expert speakers today as well. We'll start off with the first question, and this one is directed to Dr. Alonso. So from one of the audience today. So nevertheless, SMEs in Vietnam still encounter challenges in assessing subsidies to upgrade skills and production infrastructure. What are your thoughts on this in terms of the dilemma, and what are the possible solutions to addressing these issues? Dr. Alonso?
Thank you very much for the question. It's a difficult one. It's a multi-million-dollar question, and we have seen yourself and I conducting research, and also myself conducting research with other colleagues from other countries, that the concerns are very similar in Italy as well as in other countries. For instance, the subsidies have been curtailed due to the prioritizing of the government in healthcare, etc., etc. And of course, government revenues have dramatically decreased. There have been some tax breaks and so forth. So these subsidies and help, financial support, have been channeled to in other forms. Traditionally, though, many entrepreneurs have always complained that the government has not supported them appropriately, and this under these circumstances, this weakness or government institutional weakness has only exacerbated, because, as I said before, probably the focus has been redirected into other areas of top priority. And although SMEs are a top priority, because in the EU they represent 99% of the businesses and employ over 50% of the workforce, for some reason, it's a little bit cliche to say that the governments have looked the other way. So I can only provide my own experience. When my family migrated from one country to the other, and back in the 70s, they went back to Europe after spending 23 years elsewhere. They have to reinvent themselves. The time, the 1970s, was a horrific time, socially, economically, and we had to reinvent ourselves. So I, for instance, started working at a very young age. When the crisis hit very hard, we have to use a scaffolding approach, which is what I will strongly suggest to SMEs. You have to have a scaffolding approach where you just develop or go up one level at a time. In the absence of financial resources, and in the absence of hoping for immediate relief, government relief, you have to reinvent yourself. So a lot of the responses that I received from, for instance, Italian entrepreneurs, is that they had to take the initiative. So many of them had the support from family members in terms of working longer hours, in terms of pitching into the family business. Others had savings, as one of my slides showed. So you have to stretch really dramatically the few resources that you possess at this time in the crisis. So if we are talking about the hospitality industry, obviously here in RMIT, for instance, we have hundreds of small coffee shops and restaurants. So maybe they could provide some kind of offers to entice our staff. I will welcome and I will patronize those businesses. They are local businesses, but they don't seem to have this creativity that perhaps we could trigger by meeting with some of these business owners. And because we have people at university level like myself, yourself, who have worked in the industry, and we could provide bits and pieces of advice that could go a long way. So I don't have this magic solution, but to me, it's just a scaffolding approach where you can build upon strength after strength and survive one day at a time. So in the absence of these subsidies, it is a huge dilemma. Businesses are shutting down on a daily basis, and now with the potential lockdowns looming in the horizon here in Hanoi or in Ho Chi Minh and other larger cities, what do you do when you shut your business? You don't have any income. So when you reopen, that's when you need to capitalize on your strengths, and hopefully one step at a time you can improve. So we are welcome to support businesses in enhancing their soft skills, and perhaps post-COVID, those soft skills could become very handy.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alonso. Very insightful there. It's a good point, actually. Sometimes we have to build on our competencies, and as we develop those competencies, we can enhance them further and further. So thank you very much for your answer there. We have another question, and this one is directed at Ms. Quynh. So COVID-19 is categorized as a crisis because it affects the world market, but it cannot be predicted, and how to manage its risks is difficult. What should business leaders learn, or how would they react in order to overcome a crisis or unpredictable situations like COVID-19? Ms. Quynh.
Yep, thanks for the question. Actually, when I listened to Mr. Lauren's presentation, I smiled a lot because, and it linked to this question, there's a lot of answer for you already in his presentation. Because I totally agree with two facts that the first one is that a lot of companies still grew double digit during the COVID-19 time. And why could they do that? Why the others, a lot of the others could not do that, right? And then the second one is that the COVID is continue for a while, and even after this COVID-19, another type of COVID will come in, another type of crisis will come in. So that's the facts that all the business leaders now, I guess that everyone is start having it in their mind right now. So in 2020, when the COVID started, so all the companies were in the passive position because none of them had been prepared for that. But in 2021, this year, it is a transition year for all the business, and this is a lot of companies are trying to prepare themselves for the similar crisis in the future as well, not just to try from this one, to survive from this one, but also get themselves more prepared for the future similar type of COVID as well. So what you can't control the external one, but you can still control your internal one. So I would put it in some key action that I here. The first one is that you should operate in a strategically agile mode, right? So I already mentioned about strategic agility in my presentation. So the whole business, from the organization, from the team, from the way we do day-to-day one, it should be in a strategically agile mode. The second one is that the reason why a lot of companies still have double-digit growth, because before the COVID, they already digitize a lot of their process. They already deploy the digital transformation a lot in their business. And the more they deploy it, the less impacted by the COVID led to them a lot. So the second action should be to accelerate your digital transformation. That is super, super important for all the business this day. The third one is related to it's a new normal. Everything, the business model can be a new one. Your team skill set should be, your team should be equipped with the new required skill set as well. So what should be your L&D program for the team? What should be the new team profile that you can bring into your business? And the fourth one is that keep innovating. Although we all say that no one can have financial surplus during this time, everyone have to be careful with the spending. But there's still opportunity for the companies to do that and keep innovating. Is that stay close with your customer, stay close to the business. And everything's are changing right now. It's also opened up a lot of opportunities for you. So listen to them and act fast. That is very important. And actually, the BambuUP platform, we are working with a lot of corporates and companies right now to help them to design the initiative and to help them to cooperate with the startup better, right? Because the company, we have a lot of resource, but maybe we can lack of innovation in ideas. And then the startup, they do have a lot of innovative ideas, but they have an opportunity to put it in to solve the real big corporate problem. So we try to connect them together, design the initiative to support the corporate and company. And that's one of the way also Mr. Lauren mentioned in his presentation about the collaboration, which I totally agree. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Very insightful answer there. With the topic being stakeholders adaptation and resilience, could I ask Ms. Trang to answer the next question? So with Schneider moving from sort of face-to-face towards online modes, how do businesses prepare for this new hybrid working model? And also with our audience being students, how should fresh graduates seek working opportunities in such a volatile period? So how do they identify their career paths during such uncertainty? Ms. Trang,
Okay, thanks for the question. So I will split into two parts. So I take the first part on the hybrid working model first. In my experience, I think moving towards the hybrid working model would be it's not just the trend in Schneider, but it's the future of work trend that every company has been doing so. And there will be two key success factors in order to fully implement this hybrid model in my experience. The first one is from the company perspective, you need to ensure that you have to equip your employees the necessary digital tools and platform to perform their work. And then so that they can say that whenever they base in the office or on a coffee shop or based at home, the level of performance and productivity will remain unchanged because they have full access to the tools, to the platform, to the documents that they can perform their work well. So that's the infrastructure from the company that we can do and broadly, from Schneider Electric, because we provide digital solution automation to our clients. So of course we put our internal customer, our employees as the core, and we have to lead by example in doing so. The second point is because we have the core values of empowerment and being inclusive. So we reflect that empowerment and inclusive values by putting the full ownership in our employees and their line managers. So we launched the new work from home policy, let's say 2 days per week, but we don't require employees to seek for approval for the line managers. It's just more on inform the line managers on my working schedule this week, next week, and just give them the freedom to manage their work, because it's all about performance management. It's not like today I want to see you in the office, but I want to see how you deliver your job. So the discipline and the performance will be put into the hands of the line managers when they feel that they are empowered, and as well at the same time employees feel that they have the ownership to manage their work. Then we have no issues with discipline and with productivities. And at the same time, from HR perspective, we also revisit some benefit, like we also launched the flexible benefit. It's just the small benefit, but we put the account for everyone every year so that employees can claim some of the work from home tools that they need just to support and enable the hybrid model. So this is for the first part of the question. To the second part, so as I shared in my presentation, we have to shift up to more virtual mode, where hiring process, even assessment center, maybe you're not familiar with that, with a virtual assessment center, but we did it in the middle of 2020 till now. Many internship and fresh graduate assessment center where we conduct breakout, case study presentation, group presentation, group discussion virtually via Teams tool. And then we also have virtual onboarding for new hires during the lockdown, so that we don't stop, the hiring process and also onboarding new hires. And at the same time, we also launched the virtual internship program just to prepare for the worst scenario when we have to be fully locked down. We can still proceed all of the campaigns that we plan. And just for information, we have 2 cycles of internship at Schneider Electric Vietnam. The target intake would be in April and in October, and 6 months period for each of the internship program. Yeah, so I hope that I already addressed the 2 parts of the question.
Thank you, Ms. Trang. There's a lot of questions coming from our students. They're really grilling our panelists by the looks of it. I can see a whole bunch of them coming in the background. The next question is for Mr. Lawrence. So currently the world is adapting to the new normal, I guess, and we're adopting new technologies, which require quite a bit of initial investment. And of course, we have work from home, and there's also sometimes some wasted time when it comes to work from. How or what aspect, how would businesses choose how they, in terms of how they adapt and how they spend or how they invest for the new normal? Mr. Lawrence?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So first of all, there's going to be 2 groups of people in the business world. The people who acknowledge the truth, the world has changed, or the deniers. They will keep denying that this COVID is going to go away, nothing is going to change. In our opinion, the latter group is the one that's going to suffer the most, because it's not new that the entire economy has been shell-shocked for a change. Those of us very familiar with the 97, 98 crisis. Of course, then we have the financial crisis of 2008. Then before that, we have the 1980 crisis. Those crises, economic or health oriented, they fundamentally create what we call a tectonic shift of businesses. Now, as I mentioned earlier, it's very simplistic to look at COVID as one thing, but we need to acknowledge something has been building towards a series of conditions that shape the new economy. As I mentioned, the digital infrastructure is far more advanced right now. So you really have to question yourself, if you have 4G now and we are going 5G, right? And you have so much computing power that you can deploy at the staff end. That means in the past, if you have to, let's consider economy. I don't like to use war analogies, but probably it's useful. If you used to run an army, that they need to move together as a cohesive bunch. But now let's assume you don't need to move as such a big force, where you do not need to move 20 or 50,000 men, but you can deploy small teams, teams of 10, teams of 7. But these teams of 7 and 10, they are like special forces. They have all the computing power in order to generate innovation and impact. Now, which one would you want? Coordinate 20,000 people, or have very well independent, empowered teams that can work in teams of 5 or 7, but they are a fighting force on their own. And supported by artificial intelligence, they can move, they can coordinate their fires. So I think that world has come. Whether you hope after you invest, people are coming back to office, you really have to question yourself. That's why I say purpose, right? What is your purpose of your business? Who are you serving? What are you creating? And what is the environment that you are actually operating? If you are cognizant of the fact that environment has changed, your role in the competition has changed, the entire value chain has changed, then I would say that you see a great opportunity going forward. I mean, the likes of Bing Group and the others, if you can see where the Vietnamese entrepreneurs are moving, right? For sure, digital data infrastructure is the next big story for Vietnam. But not every Vietnamese company is prepared for that. That doesn't matter. But those who are ahead, they see a horizon opening up before them. These are the ones who will win. But those who are hoping that it will go back to normal, you'll go back to the past, you'll go back to office, well, we'll just say, wait and see, right? But our view throughout the world is that the world has really gone through what we call a tectonic shift. It's an earthquake moment, and it's really important that you don't spend money just for the sake of you want to let your staff work from home. You actually need to think of your entire business model. Can you continue to work from home? I give you another thing. Why you should not listen to consultants like myself. But if you don't believe consultants like myself, go and check where the money is moving. In the stock market, going forward, listed companies, if they have a lot of office blocks, they have to justify, why are they spending money on buildings, right, when there's no staff? Can they reduce what we call cost per staff? So a lot of money is shifting out from real estate, which is why a lot of big real estate companies are changing their business model. CapitaLand, one of the largest real estate companies in the world, a Singapore company, they had no choice but to create a whole new infrastructure, because we know that the REIT market, the office market is going down, right? Because people will not need so much office space. So if you don't believe what a consultant like me is saying, right, look at where the money is flowing. So the money never lies, and the situation has changed, and therefore, back to the question again, are you just investing for this moment, or do you actually see a whole new horizon has opened before you? I think that's more exciting, rather than count pennies, right? Hey, why am I investing in these folks, right? Letting them work from home and they're going to come back to office. If you see that, then I can only say the world has gotten more complicated. Yeah, it's an exciting time. Yes.
Thank you, Lawrence. That's a very insightful answer. Hopefully next time when I see a consultant, I'll reiterate what you've said and try and get a discount on the fee. But very insightful, and you're right about adaptability as well, this idea of Industry 4.0, and perhaps COVID has helped us move forward faster than we expect. The next question we have is for Dr. Alonso, and it's to do or focus upon the coffee part of your presentation. In terms of coffee production, is there any kind of policies that could come from government that could help SMEs in the coffee production line? So how could government play a role, and how could government perhaps support the idea of coffee growth and the idea of the coffee industry in Vietnam? Dr. Alonso?
Well, thank you for the question. I'm not an expert on government policies here in Vietnam. I'm not very fluent in terms of knowledge and expertise. However, having seen other industries that where the bulk of the businesses are micro and small enterprises, Policies have been incorporated, for instance, in small subsidies. I remember when we produced flowers ourselves, the government sent agronomists to the lots, to the plots of land, to the farmers' houses, and introduced these policies, tax-free or interest-free loans that were available up to a certain amount, 1,000, 2,000 US dollars for a certain type of production. So in the coffee industry, perhaps, as I mentioned before, the dry mills could be an opportunity. So some investment, of course, is needed, but that will probably create some energize some parts of the industry to become more entrepreneurial, for instance, adding value to coffee production. I know for a fact that there is already a coffee tourism industry growing in some parts of Vietnam. So as Mr. Lawrence was mentioning before, I am a firm believer. I'm not a denier. I mean, this is already happening, and the tectonic shift is occurring. So going back to probably to 2 years ago will not be realistic, and businesses will have to become much more entrepreneurial and innovative, solving problems with what they have at hand. So before I mentioned the scaffolding approach, because we're talking about micro businesses and small businesses that conform the majority of businesses in Vietnam. So in the coffee industry, it's the same picture. So my experience waiting for government handouts is very time consuming, especially now in the current environment. So perhaps the governments could provide that form of support by some infrastructure in terms of the dry mills, where associations or communities or cooperatives of coffee producers could come together, and with the help perhaps of some of us in providing workshops and so forth to help them build up skills. And maybe some of us who have experience in the tourism and hospitality industry could provide some ideas as to how to draw, when they draw visitors, how to operate the service/product enterprise or operation. So if there are areas, as I said before, in Vietnam where you already have an established coffee tourism industry, it's growing, it's developing, and perhaps that could be one area that could add value to coffee production. So I'm not speaking out of ignorance here, because I've seen this happen in countries such as Peru, where I had the pleasure to interview a coffee exporter who works with 300 micro producers throughout Peru. So talking about adding value, he has 2 coffee shops on the same street, and those coffee shops are almost unique to the capital of Peru, where there is no coffee culture. Here is the opposite. You have a very strong coffee culture with the hundreds, if not thousands, of coffee shops in many cities, at least in 3 cities, especially in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh. So that area, the government could also work together with the coffee industry to liaise perhaps a little bit more strongly with the coffee shops, because there are opportunities. That person in Peru, he's actually selling most of a big chunk of his coffee to visitors. I mean, I'm talking about pre-COVID, 2017. But now with online sales, I mean, coffee doesn't wait so much. So he can send packages overseas to those people who converted to his brand. A similar approach could be utilized here. But I have a list of them, because hopefully I will become engaged in research with the coffee industry. Is one of the areas that I'm very interested in. So for example, strengthening the coffee house culture could be one area. When tourism resumes in Vietnam, people coming in. I was one of the many, foreigners who didn't know that Vietnam has cocoa production, which is not very significant yet, but it's world class. Because I have tasted different cocoa flavors around the world, especially in Switzerland, and I can tell you the ones that I have tasted here are unique. So there is an opportunity for exposing Vietnam to the wider world now, as Mr. Lawrence was saying, with the addition technology, or the other guest speakers were talking about the importance of becoming more engaged with digital platforms. So digital technology could also be used to, and we university lecturers could be involved in helping, for example, in a translation or positioning of some marketing campaigns to enhance the image of coffee internationally, or cocoa. So promotional efforts. I have done that myself with the wine industry in Spain, for example, where a local association, when I first started working with them, the web page was not even in English. Now it is in English and German, and that has provided a much more dissemination of the information of the local wines, which were almost unknown to the wider audience outside that region. Soft skills, again, why not enhance the soft skills of the children of those coffee producers who are growing now, are in high school or perhaps finishing high school, in terms of English, so that they can receive visitors or people driving by, etc., or even working from home and selling coffee overseas as a sole ownership or as a small family business. So that could also be made more agile and perhaps supported through government, maybe not financially, but perhaps the government could send agronomists and other experts that could persuade businesses to work alongside the universities and so forth. So for us researchers, I mean, there could be an opportunity as well, because we could become engaged with the coffee industry and provide not solutions, but recommendations as how to go and move forward. So I think I need to wrap it up. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Alonso. And yes, I do agree. There are two of my addictions here, coffee and chocolate. Very nice production of those two items in Vietnam. Ms. Quynh, I think your reflection has struck a chord with a lot of our students. And there's two questions in particular that's for you. One is, how do you balance your personal life and your work as a successful person? And also, how do you have this positive energy when you go about your work and your life?
Okay, thanks for the questions. I guess I try to combine the answer of two questions into one, because it can actually link together. For me, it is very important to always maintain the positive energy. And for myself, there's two things I do. And I guess that can be the tips for everyone. The first one is that identify your source of positive energy. What makes you excited the most? What makes you happy? Can provide you happy moments. For me, it's my family, the first one. Right. So when I'm super busy with a lot of work, I have to ensure that. I tell myself that I have to ensure enough quality time with my family. Right. I don't have the quantity, but I have to have the quality time with my family. So when we gather, make sure that I talk to my kids every day. I read books with them. I play with them. We have family activities. We cook together at the weekend, etc. So we want to ensure that is because my family is the biggest source of positive energy for me. The second one is that my friends, my college. Because we spend a lot of times not at home, but during the COVID, maybe we work from home a lot. But normally, even the stay at home, we interact virtually with our college a lot. So they are also my source of positive energy. But it's important for you that you should care about who's around you. Ensure that you are surrounded by positive people. Don't try, if they are negative people, you can easily get the negativity, and that's not good for you. So I always try. My friends are very positive people as well. Right? There are some other source of positive energy for me is also eating, etc. Right? So you need to identify your own source of positive energy. The second one is that the source of energy is still something can be external, but you yourself have to have the ability to self-motivate. Don't try to rely totally on the other people who have to motivate you. No way.
Don't expect your family always there to motivate you, or don't expect your boss to motivate you. Don't expect your teacher to motivate you. You have to motivate yourself first, right? And when I encounter into a issue or trouble, I always tell myself, everything happens for a reason. It must be something positive there. So I need to look for the positive thing. So remember that when you see a glass with half of the water, you can think that you just need half to make it. You only have half, and then it's empty. Or on the opposite side, you can think that you just need half of the glass, and then you have a full glass of water, right? So it really depends on you, the way you look into the things, the way you look into the context. For me, I'm a super positive person. So if I look into a half water glass, I think that I just need a half of the glass, and then I can have 2 glasses of full water. And that's the way I look into things.
Thank you, Ms. Quynh. That's very insightful. Ms. Trang, can we have perhaps a quick answer from yourself? I think there's one in particular that's focusing on Schneider. How did you cope with logistics and transportation with the supply chain disruption as part of COVID? So perhaps a quick response from yourself, that's possible?
Thank you. Yeah, so I mean, maybe my logistic director would be in the best position to respond to this question, but I'm happy to answer on his behalf, because I'm also part of the pandemic team. So we set up the pandemic committee during the COVID-19 lockdown period, and we found this really helpful. And logistic team, together with sales team, customer service team, HR team, we all join in this committee. Of course, each of the team will play a different role. So for logistic, I think the key takeaway is that we shorten the cycle of doing our demand planning. Working with shorten the period doing forecasts with the sales team to ensure that we forecast better, and then we stock, we have advanced stock for the high demand products and materials. So this is the first point. The second point is that I noticed that they leverage, they call C-level advanced PO, purchase order. So they leverage own sources to buy materials and product directly from supplier, from distributor, from third party, where normally in the normal process we already set a lot of guidance, but we grant a lot and make exceptional on some sources that we need, that the material and product would be in the high need after the demand, and then forecast with the sales team. So we shorten the cycle of doing business, and then we stock the product and material that we forecast with high demand, and then we open the sources of purchasing material and product just to deal with the pandemic. So this is my short answer.
Thank you so much. That's really interesting how to shorten that timeline and make things much more functional, much more feasible given COVID, I guess. Mr. Lawrence, the last question goes to yourself. Apologies to all the nice questions coming in from all students, but we don't always have time to go through all these. But for the last question, Mr. Lawrence, so technology obviously plays a role in COVID and plays a role in terms of how companies grow and mitigate the impact. So what is the role technology can have moving forward against the pandemic?
Yeah, I think for sure now there's a lot of digitization across industries. I mean, we are looking at very exciting sectors like agriculture. People used to look down on agriculture, but one of the biggest amount of money moving into is what we call agro-tech. And COVID-19 has affirmed that food security is important. That you can easily run out of rice, eggs, and all this kind of stuff, right? So any amount of money that is shifting into that area, I think agro-tech is one of the areas we are looking into. Then of course you are in the era of ESG, right? So you are talking about more sustainability. So anything that is sustainability and digital related, and how we can correlate and help you calculate your impact, environmental impact, and how that affect your costing, your profit margin, and your sustainability. That is definitely an area that we are seeing a lot of growth. So I would say that there is a difference between digitization for efficiency, which used to happen a lot in the corporate world, but now is digitization for a strategic advantage. That means it's no longer important. It's no longer just about, okay, let's digitize. I mean, what the hell are you doing with it, right? But if your digitization is strategic, you're transforming your business model, you are creating what we call greater install value, and you are able to move faster. And that's why I'm quite bullish about Vietnam, because I think Vietnam is one of the fastest in applying sustainability, and there's competitive industries. And I think that for a country like Vietnam with a lot of young population, very astute and very digital savvy, you have a lot of that, what we call positive factors, right? In terms of skill, talent, the market environment, and the kind of the businesses that you are saying. So I would say, be very careful of the generic digitization conversation. Yes, you have to digitize. What are you digitizing for, right? And you probably need to understand that a lot of the companies that are growing very fast, the digital teams are in-house, and they are constantly breaking things, as in they're trying out new stuff. So the ability to test out, to implement, and to really see whether the tech is driving business advantage matters. Number two, how the convergence of ESG, agriculture, energy needs converge together, right? And how digitization is helping companies to leap from ahead forward, that matters. And number three, I would say that digitization in coordinating a workforce that is distributed, the work from anywhere culture is going to be here to stay. And how can you maintain morale? I think a number of the leaders here have mentioned the importance of keeping the staff engaged, right? But you're going to see that you're going to deal with more and more time zones. It's easier to work across the world. And it's not unthinkable, because more and more Vietnamese companies are expanding. So imagine if a Vietnamese company has a subsidiary in Brazil, has a subsidiary in the US, has a subsidiary in Africa, right? And in India. Technology now allow you to scale very fast. But in the past, for an MNC, it would take about 5 years. But now you can actually switch it on within 2 to 3, right? Or even less than that, because we already have a lot of digital infrastructure that enables companies to grow faster because of digital. Very exciting times. Most importantly, it's about being purpose-driven and to question yourself, what kind of digitization strategy you are implementing. Is it following others, or is it for a strategic gain? Yeah.
Thank you, panel, for such a great Q&A session. It's great to see our students are really interested in this event. We have received a large number of interesting questions from students. Finally, please welcome Associate Professor Trung Nguyen to deliver the closing remark.
Hello, everyone. So I was on the name and the panels, and my name is there, but this is now my chance to have a chance to speak, right? So first of all, I'd like to thank everyone, wonderful people who spoke today and shared with our students and staff, and also people behind the scene who worked really hard to make this happen. My job is to try to connect all the dots from all of the speakers and also your discussion. Really interesting when I put it all together, and let me have about 5 minutes to recap all of the important points from our wonderful speakers. But before I go for that, our students there, I want to thank them as well. You see the 2 class of mine still all there, all of them still there, and but you need to also let should know that these people, our speakers, how much we have to pay one person if you're out there and get the CEO of the consultant company like that. So I would like you to appreciate their support as well. So go back to the recap. It's wonderful to see that you have the view from academics, right, Dr. Abel, and they will have from industry experts, top people like Dr. Miss Quynh and Trang. We have the consultant from the regional company, right? So it's really good to have all view from 3 experts in this presentations. From company type, we have the focus on SME, small, medium enterprise, but we also have the perspective from MNC, which is Schneider Electric. And you also have a case from Vietnam, from Asean, and also the EU. So we look at the 3 dimensions. So it's really wonderful, combination. So let me go to each of the presentations very quickly. I think for Dr. Abel, really great to see that apparently we have a drop in the demand, right? And also he suggests that online presence is the way to go, right? And also diversify, also upskilling, and also business model. You need to think about that. So this is the lesson learned, not only for us here, but also for those who listen to this recording video in the future. I think so we also have a lot of journalists also want to dive deeper into this. For the second presentation, I would say Ms. Quynh have a lot of similarities, like I already showed her, between her values or competency that she emphasized and RMIT value, right? But in a nutshell, she did mention 5 important points. That this is actually the inflection point, or some other may say or turning point, but this is inflection point for us. And all the students need to, and people like me, I also learn from this. So she mentioned self-aware and keep learning, right? And then you have to be better every day, and especially say yes to all new challenges. And then some of our students also ask how to keep the positive energy, and she did mention that as well. So really, this is something that we need to really learn from a very successful person in life like her. And 4 competency that she emphasized: keep learning, right? Courage to hate the comfort zone. That's very important, because a lot of our students, you know, they have the okay, good enough, and then they don't have the courage to go out of that. And resilient, especially agile in their agility strategy. So really good, and a lot of things that we learned from John as well, and RMIT value is very in tandem with her presentation as well. So thank you once again, Ms. Quynh, for that. For the third presentation, Ms. Trang, right? So if you look at the COVID at a chance to really, it's a real test to all of the business leaders in the world. It's a global scale. We haven't seen this before, right, basically. So really, you know, you don't see, like I talked in the Lawrence presentation a little bit later, but there is a correlation there. So you will see that, you know, this is not many cases that have been successful. So Schneider Electric, presented by our great presenter is Mr. Trang, is really great, and he showed us, you know, how the big business, you know, we did a lot of digital transformation research and show that the big business very difficult to make change to react to the situation like this. But her firm showing that they have the priority immediately to respond to the COVID, change and innovation in place, and very good effective communication plan, right? And they focus on business needs and benefits, but also that employee needs, right? So very successful for all of us, especially for the student, if you really want to take this with you for the next level. And finally, our consultants, thank you once again, Mr. Lauren John, for this. I know that if we don't have sufficient money to pay you for such the time that you prepare and talk for this, if you ask us to pay, right? So thank you once again. A lot of interesting framework and also model that you put in here. The thing that you mentioned right here, you say that a company is really weak in your research to respond or to pivot to the new situation, and you put the 4 S, let's say social distance, snail growth, and savvy digital, and situational thinking like that. You also put in place 4C, you say cost and collaborate and coordinating. So that sort of thing is our students and also me and my colleagues also learn for it. One important thing is we are teaching students about pedestal model, but you put in here BTSC. So we also emphasize you did emphasize the competition in here, which is great. So before I end my recap, I would relate to one of the very famous quote by Steve Jobs of Abel. He said that sometimes when you innovate, you make mistakes. So admit it quickly and get on with the new improvement for other innovation. So by that, I would say that is linked to our Ms. Quynn's presentation as well. I don't want, I would like you not to laugh Win Smart because they just stop, produce smartphone and TV just last 2 days, right? So if you look at the Steve Jobs point of view, this is something that we need to learn from all of speaker and also practice in our country as well. So once again, I would like to thank all the speakers, our event team, especially Tin, over the past few days, and really, this is a good case of dealing with COVID and dealing with we meant to be the offline, right? But this has become online. I'd like to thank IB team led by Dr. Abel, and also on the professional team, Dr. Seng as the moderator, Mr. Lecturer Nguyen for the MC, and all our students still here with us today. So I wish you all the best and keep doing a good job and contribute to our society. So thank you very much once again. And goodbye for now.
Thank you, Associate Professor Trung Nguyen. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of our International Business Week 2021 today. I'd like to thank all guests of honors and participants at this ceremony. It's been a pleasure to host this event, and I look forward to welcoming you to the future event at RMIT. Thank you so much.
Only one final word is that we do have a token, a trophy as the token of our appreciation, but we put online, so we will send it to you by postal later on. So thank you. For Lauren from Singapore, I will send it to Helen in Hanoi from our campus. So thank you so much once again.